It was a quiet Tuesday evening, the kind where the sun hangs low in the sky, painting everything in shades of orange and gold. The highway stretched out endlessly, dotted with cars rushing home after a long day. Among them was a sleek silver sports car parked awkwardly on the side of the road. Its driver, a woman in her early 30s, stood near the back, pacing nervously. Her expensive clothes, a crisp blouse and tailored pants, looked oddly out of place against the dusty roadside. She glanced at her phone, sighed, and then stared at the flat tire as if willing it to magically fix itself. Not far away, a young man rode his old motorcycle down the same stretch of highway. He wasn't anyone special, at least not in the eyes of most people who passed him by. Dressed in simple jeans and a faded t-shirt, he looked like any other hard-working guy trying to make ends meet. But there was something about him that stood out, the calmness in his demeanor, the way he carried himself with quiet confidence. His name isn't important right now, but what matters is that he noticed the stranded car almost immediately. He slowed down, pulling over behind the vehicle. For a moment he hesitated, wondering if the woman needed help or if someone else was already on the way. When he saw her glancing around anxiously, though, he made up his mind. Swinging one leg off the bike, he walked over, his boots crunching softly against the gravel. "Hey," he said, his voice warm and friendly. "Looks like you're having some trouble." The woman turned quickly, startled. It took her a second to process his presence. Then, realizing he was offering assistance, she let out a small laugh, though it sounded more nervous than amused. "Yeah, I guess you could say that," she replied, gesturing toward the deflated tire. "I'm not exactly sure how to change it myself." "No worries," he said with a reassuring smile. "I can take care of it for you. I work at an auto repair shop part-time. You're in good hands." For a brief moment she hesitated. This wasn't the kind of neighborhood where strangers often stopped to help without expecting something in return. And yet, there was something genuine about him, an honesty in his tone, a kindness in his eyes that put her at ease. After a beat, she nodded. "Thank you. I really appreciate it." As he knelt beside the car and began working, she watched him closely. There was no rush in his movements, no sense of irritation despite being interrupted during his ride home. Instead, he moved with purpose, his hands steady as he loosened the lug nuts and hoisted the jack into place. Every so often he glanced up and offered a reassuring comment. "Almost done here," he'd say, or, "These things happen to everyone, it's no big deal." She found herself smiling faintly, feeling a strange mix of relief and curiosity. Who was this guy? What was, his story? Most people wouldn't have stopped to help a stranger, especially not someone like her, a woman who clearly came from money. Yet here he was, treating her like just another person in need. When the job was finally finished, he stood up, brushing dirt off his palms. "All set," he announced, stepping back to admire his handiwork. The spare tire was securely in place, ready to get her back on the road. "I don't even know how to thank you," she said honestly, reaching into her purse. "How much do I owe you?" He shook his head firmly. "Nothing. Just glad I could help." But she insisted. "Please, let me pay you for your time. Or at least give me your number. If anything like this happens again, I'll know who to call." He chuckled lightly, scratching the back of his neck. "All right, fair enough." Pulling out his phone, he handed it to her so she could save her contact info. As their fingers brushed briefly, neither of them realized the significance of that moment. To them, it was just a simple exchange between two strangers brought together by chance. Little did they know, however, that this encounter would mark the beginning of something extraordinary, something neither of them could have predicted. The woman drove off that evening, her car running smoothly thanks to the young man's quick work. But as she merged back onto the highway, her mind kept drifting back to him. There was something about the way he carried himself, calm, confident, yet completely unassuming, that stuck with her. She couldn't shake the image of his focused expression as he worked on her tire, or the warmth in his voice when he reassured her everything would be fine. Her life wasn't short on luxuries. At just 31 years old, she had built a multi-million-dollar tech company from scratch. earning recognition as one of the youngest self-made millionaires in the industry. Her days were filled with boardroom meetings, networking events, and endless emails. Success had come early for her, but it hadn't come without sacrifice. Long hours at the office meant little time for personal connections. Friends drifted away over the years, and relationships fizzled out under the weight of her demanding schedule. By the time she hit her 30s, she found herself surrounded by people who admired her wealth and achievements, but few who truly knew her. That's why meeting someone like him felt so unusual. He didn't care about her money or status. In fact, he seemed completely unfazed by it. To him, she was just another person needing help, a stranger whose flat tire had left her stranded on the side of the road. And maybe that's what made their brief interaction stand out to her. For once, she wasn't the successful entrepreneur or the millionaire CEO. She was simply herself. Over the next few weeks, she caught herself thinking about him more often than she cared to admit. It started small, a fleeting memory of his smile while she sipped her morning coffee, or a random thought about how effortlessly he handled the tire change when she drove past a mechanic shop. These thoughts grew louder, harder to ignore, until one day she realized she missed him. Not in a romantic way, not yet anyway, but in the way you miss someone who made you feel seen, even if only for a moment. It didn't take long for her to find an excuse to reach out. A week after their encounter, she noticed a strange noise coming from her car. It was probably nothing serious, but it gave her the perfect reason to send him a text. "Hey," she wrote hesitantly. "I hope this isn't weird, but I think my car might need another look. Do you have time to check it out?" His response came quickly. "Sure thing, just let me know when and where." They met up later that afternoon at a quiet parking lot near a local cafe. When she pulled in, he was already waiting, leaning casually against his motorcycle. Seeing him again brought an unexpected wave of relief. It was like reconnecting with an old friend rather than someone she barely knew. "Back already?" he teased lightly as she stepped out of her car. "You're going to make me think you're trouble." She laughed, shaking her head. "I swear, I'm not usually this unlucky, but hey, at least I know who to call now." He grinned, walking over to inspect the car. As it turned out, the noise was nothing major, a loose bolt that he tightened within minutes. Still, she used the opportunity to strike up a conversation. They talked about everything and nothing, the weather, traffic, their favorite foods. Bit by bit, they began to learn more about each other. He told her about his life, how he juggled college classes during the day and worked evenings at his uncle's auto repair shop to pay the bills. How he dreamed of becoming an engineer someday, though the path ahead felt daunting at times. She listened intently, amazed by his determination and resilience. Despite the challenges he faced, there was no bitterness in his tone, only optimism and grit. In return, she shared pieces of her own story, carefully edited, of course. She didn't want to overwhelm him with talk of her wealth or success, so she kept things light. She mentioned her job vaguely, describing it as something in tech, without going into detail about her company or net worth. Instead, she focused on the parts of her life that mattered most: her love for problem solving, her passion for innovation, and the loneliness that sometimes crept in despite all her accomplishments. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the parking lot, neither of them wanted to say goodbye. Their conversation flowed naturally, free of awkward pauses or forced pleasantries. By the time they parted ways, she felt a spark of something she hadn't felt in years: hope. Hope that maybe, just maybe, this could be the start of something real. From that day forward, their interactions became more frequent. What began as occasional texts about car troubles evolved into regular check-ins. Sometimes they'd meet up for coffee. Other times they'd chat late into the night, swapping stories and sharing laughter. Slowly but surely, a friendship blossomed between them, one built on mutual respect and genuine connection. For her, spending time with him was like stepping into a different world. Away from the glitz and glamour of her high-powered career, she found solace in his simplicity. He reminded her of the importance of staying grounded, of finding joy in the little things. Whether it was fixing a broken-down bike or helping a neighbor carry groceries, he approached life with a humility that inspired her. And for him, getting to know her opened doors to possibilities he never imagined. She encouraged him to pursue his dreams, offering advice and resources whenever she could. Though she tried to downplay her influence, he couldn't help but notice the subtle ways she pushed him to aim higher. Under her guidance, he started applying for internships and scholarships, determined to build a better future for himself. Their bond deepened with each passing day, weaving threads of trust and understanding between them. They came from vastly different worlds, hers filled with privilege and opportunity, his marked by struggle and perseverance. But those differences only strengthened their connection. Together, they created a space where both could be authentic, free from judgment or pretense. Yet, as much as they enjoyed each other's company, neither dared to acknowledge the growing feelings simmering beneath the surface. For now, they were content to exist in the gray area between friendship and something more, savoring the comfort of knowing they had found someone truly special. As the weeks turned into months, their friendship grew stronger. It wasn't just about car repairs anymore, though she still teased him about being her personal mechanic. They started spending more time together, finding excuses to meet up even when there was no flat tire or strange noise in her car. Sometimes it was coffee at a quiet cafe. Other times they'd grab burgers from a roadside diner he swore had the best fries in town. Each meeting felt natural, like two old friends catching up after years apart, even though their bond was still so new. What surprised her most was how easy it was to talk to him. In her world, conversations often revolved around business deals, investments, and networking opportunities. People wanted something from her, whether it was advice, funding, or simply the prestige of knowing someone successful. But with him, things were different. He didn't care about her title or her bank account. To him, she was just a person, someone worth listening to, not because of what she could offer, but because of who she was. She found herself opening up to him in ways she never had before. She told him about the pressure she felt to always be perfect, to live up to the image everyone expected of her. How lonely it could get, surrounded by people who admired her success but didn't really know her, and how sometimes late at night she wondered if all the sacrifices were worth it. He listened without judgment, nodding thoughtfully as she spoke. When she finished, he didn't offer platitudes or try to fix everything for her. Instead, he shared his own struggles, the long hours juggling work and school, the weight of responsibility that came with being the first in his family to pursue higher education, the fear of failing those who believed in him. His honesty touched her deeply. For once, she didn't feel like the only one carrying the burden of expectations. Their connection went beyond words, too. There was an unspoken understanding between them, a kind of rhythm that made every moment together comfortable and familiar. If she hesitated to finish a sentence, he waited patiently, giving her space to gather her thoughts. If he seemed distracted or tired, she noticed right away and asked if he was okay. Neither of them had to explain themselves. It was as if they instinctively knew what the other needed. One evening, they decided to take a drive out of the city. She suggested it on a whim, saying she needed a break from the constant buzz of meetings and deadlines. He agreed immediately, eager to show her some of his favorite spots outside the urban sprawl. As they drove along winding country roads, windows down and music playing softly in the background, she felt a sense of freedom she hadn't experienced in years. They stopped at a small lake tucked away in the hills. The water shimmered under the fading sunlight, golden ripples stretching toward the horizon. Sitting on the hood of her car, they talked about their dreams, things they hoped to achieve, places they wanted to visit, the kind of life they envisioned for themselves. She admitted she'd always dreamed of traveling the world, not for luxury, vacations, but to experience different cultures and perspectives. He confessed he'd love to design machines that could solve real-world problems, like clean water systems for remote villages or affordable tools for farmers. Listening to him speak, she realized how much she admired his vision. It wasn't just about ambition. It was about purpose. He wanted to make a difference, to leave the world better than he found it. That selflessness resonated with her in a way nothing else ever had. She began to see him not just as the guy who fixed her car or cheered her up on tough days, but as someone who inspired her to think bigger, to aim higher. But amidst all these moments of connection, doubts lingered in the back of her mind. Their worlds were so different, his filled with hard work and modest means, hers overflowing with privilege and opportunity. Could their friendship survive such disparities? Would he grow resentful if he felt overshadowed by her lifestyle? Or worse, would others judge him for being with someone like her? She pushed those thoughts aside, unwilling to let fear ruin what they had. After all, their bond wasn't built on material things, it was rooted in trust, respect, and genuine care. Still, she couldn't ignore the whispers of uncertainty creeping into her thoughts. For his part, he wrestled with his own insecurities. He knew people might question his intentions, assuming he was using her for her wealth or status. Some of his friends had already hinted at it, teasing him lightly, but planting seeds of doubt nonetheless. Was he good enough for someone like her? Could he ever fit into her world, with its polished surfaces and high-stakes decisions? Despite these uncertainties, neither of them pulled away. If anything, their growing feelings only drew them closer. They weren't ready to label what they had, not yet, but the chemistry between them was undeniable. Small gestures said more than words ever could. The way he held the door open for her, the gentle teasing that made her laugh until her sides hurt, the quiet moments when their eyes met and lingered just a little longer than necessary. One night, as they sat on a park bench under a canopy of stars, she finally voiced what had been weighing on her heart. "I don't want you to think I'm crazy," she began, her voice soft but steady. "But I need to say this. Being around you, it's changed me. You've shown me there's more to life than chasing success or living up to everyone else's expectations. I've never met anyone like you." He looked at her, his expression thoughtful. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then, slowly, he smiled. "You've changed me too," he said. "Before we met, I didn't think I'd ever have much in common with someone like you. But now, I can't imagine my life without you in it." Her breath caught in her throat. Hearing those words, spoken so honestly and openly, made her heart race. She wanted to tell him exactly how she felt, to pour out all the emotions swirling inside her. But the words wouldn't come. Instead, she reached over and took his hand, squeezing it gently. "I don't care what anyone says," she whispered, finally. "This feels right. You feel right." He nodded, his smile widening. "Then let's figure it out together." In that moment, standing on the edge of something neither fully understood, they made a silent promise to face whatever challenges lay ahead. Their journey wouldn't be easy, they both knew that, but as long as they had each other, they felt ready to take on the world. As their relationship deepened, the world around them began to take notice. At first it was subtle, sidelong glances from strangers when they walked into a restaurant together, or hushed whispers at social events where she introduced him as a close friend. But soon the murmurs grew louder, turning into outright stares and pointed comments. People couldn't help but notice the stark contrast between them, her polished appearance and confident stride, his casual demeanor and unassuming style. The differences that had once seemed insignificant now loomed large in the eyes of others. For her, the scrutiny was nothing new. As a successful businesswoman, she was no stranger to judgment. Critics had always found ways to pick apart her choices, whether it was her leadership style, her decisions in the boardroom, or even her wardrobe. But this time felt different. This wasn't just about her. It was about him, too. And seeing him subjected to the same harsh gaze made her protective instincts kick in. She noticed the way people talked about him behind his back, often assuming the worst. Some called him opportunistic, suggesting he was only with her for her money or status. Others dismissed him outright, claiming someone like him could never truly understand her world. Even some of her closest friends expressed concern, urging her to reconsider. "Are you sure about this?" one asked delicately over lunch. "It's not just about you anymore," Think about your reputation. Her frustration boiled over during one particularly tense dinner with colleagues. A well-meaning but misguided acquaintance brought up the topic, couching their criticism in thinly veiled concern. "I just want what's best for you," they said, leaning across the table. "This situation might not be the wisest move for your career." She clenched her fists under the table, forcing herself to stay calm. "He's not a situation," she replied sharply, her voice steady despite the storm brewing inside her. "He's a person, a kind, intelligent, hard-working person who deserves respect. If anyone has a problem with that, then maybe they don't know me as well as they think." The room fell silent after her outburst, but the tension lingered long after the meal ended. That night, as she lay awake replaying the conversation in her mind, she realized something important. She wasn't just fighting for their relationship, she was fighting for him, for the right to love someone who challenged her, inspired her, and reminded her of the values she held dear. No amount of criticism would change that. Meanwhile, he faced his own battles. Back in his community, reactions were mixed. Some people admired him for standing by his principles, refusing to let societal expectations dictate his life. They saw him as proof that true connection transcended wealth and background. Others, however, weren't so supportive. Friends teased him relentlessly, accusing him of punching above his weight or chasing a lifestyle he didn't belong in. Family members voiced concerns, worried he was setting himself up for heartbreak. At work, things were even harder. Co-workers whispered behind his back, speculating about his motives. One day, an older colleague pulled him aside, shaking his head disapprovingly. "You're a good kid," the man said gruffly. "But do you really think this is going to end well? People like her, they live in a different world." His jaw tightened, but he kept his composure. "People like her aren't all the same," he shot back, his tone firm but respectful. "And neither am I. We're figuring things out just like anyone else." Despite the challenges, neither of them backed down. They leaned on each other during the toughest moments, drawing strength from their shared commitment. When the tabloids caught wind of their story, splashing sensational headlines across magazine covers, they chose to ignore the noise. Together, they decided to focus on what mattered most: their bond. One evening, after another exhausting day of dealing with rumors and gossip, they found themselves sitting on her apartment balcony, watching the city lights flicker in the distance. The air was cool, and the hum of traffic below provided a soothing backdrop to their conversation. For a while, neither of them spoke, content to simply sit side by side in silence. Finally, she broke the quiet. "Do you ever wonder if we're making a mistake?" she asked softly, her eyes fixed on the horizon. "If maybe we're asking for too much?" He turned to look at her, his expression thoughtful. "Honestly, yeah, sometimes I do," he admitted. "But then I remember why we started this in the first place. You make me better, and I hope I do the same for you. Isn't that worth fighting for?" Tears welled up in her eyes, though she blinked them away quickly. "Yes," she said firmly, "it is." They talked late into the night, sharing their fears and hopes for the future. Both knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy. There would be more judgment, more obstacles, more moments of doubt. But they also knew they couldn't face those challenges alone. Not anymore. Together, they vowed to keep moving forward, no matter what. Over time, their resilience began to pay off. Slowly but surely, some of the skepticism faded. Those who truly cared about them started to see past the surface, recognizing the depth of their connection. Her closest friends stopped questioning her choices and instead offered support, realizing how much happier she seemed since meeting him. His family, though initially wary, warmed up to her once they saw how genuinely she cared for him. Even in professional circles, attitudes shifted. Colleagues who had once dismissed him as an outsider began to appreciate his perspective, valuing the fresh ideas he brought to discussions. And while there were still moments of awkwardness, like when a snide comment slipped through at a networking event, they learned to handle them with grace, using humor and patience to diffuse tension. Through it all, their love continued to grow. It wasn't perfect, no relationship ever is, but it was real. They celebrated small victories together, like landing a big project at work or acing a difficult exam. They comforted each other during setbacks, offering encouragement when self-doubt crept in. And they laughed, a lot, finding joy in the little things like cooking dinner together or debating which movie to watch on a lazy Sunday afternoon. One day, as they strolled through a park hand in hand, she stopped suddenly, pulling him toward a bench. "I've been thinking," she said, her voice tinged with excitement. "What if we did something meaningful together? Something that combines both our passions?" He raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "Like what?" She grinned, her eyes sparkling with enthusiasm. "A scholarship program for kids who need help paying for school or training in fields like engineering and tech. You could mentor them, share your experience, and I could use my resources to fund it." The idea lit a fire in him. "That's incredible," he said, smiling broadly. "We could actually make a difference." From that moment on, they poured their energy into bringing the vision to life. They spent countless hours brainstorming, planning, and reaching out to potential partners. It wasn't always smooth sailing. There were budget constraints, logistical hurdles, and moments of uncertainty. But they tackled every challenge as a team. When the program finally launched, it became a testament to everything they stood for. Perseverance, compassion, and the belief that love could bridge even the widest gaps. Standing side by side at the inaugural ceremony, surrounded by students eager to learn and grow, they knew they had created something extraordinary. Their journey hadn't been easy, but it had taught them invaluable lessons. About courage, about trust, and about the power of choosing love over fear. As they looked out at the crowd, holding hands tightly, they realized something profound. Their story wasn't just about two people overcoming adversity. It was about proving that true connection transcends labels, expectations, and doubts. The scholarship program quickly became the centerpiece of their lives. What started as a simple idea, a way to give back and combine their passions, grew into something far bigger than either of them had imagined. They poured their hearts into it, working tirelessly to ensure every detail was perfect. From selecting deserving students to organizing workshops and mentorship sessions, they were involved in every step. It wasn't just about providing financial aid. It was about creating opportunities for young people who might otherwise never have access to them. For her, this project was a chance to reconnect with the values she'd sometimes lost sight of in the whirlwind of her career. As a tech entrepreneur, she had spent years chasing success, often at the expense of personal fulfillment. But now, watching these kids light up with excitement as they learned new skills, she felt a sense of purpose she hadn't experienced in ages. She began mentoring some of the participants herself, sharing stories from her own journey and offering advice on navigating challenges. Seeing their determination reminded her of why she fell in love with technology in the first place, the endless possibilities, the power to create change. He, too, found deep satisfaction in the work. For so long he'd dreamed of making a difference but doubted whether he'd ever have the resources or influence to do so. Now, standing in front of a group of eager students, explaining how engines worked or walking them through basic coding exercises, he realized his dreams weren't out of reach after all. These moments filled him with pride, not because of what he achieved, but because he could help others achieve their goals. He often stayed late at events, answering questions and encouraging shy students to speak up. His humility and patience earned him the admiration of everyone involved. But despite the joy the program brought, the outside world still posed challenges. The media hadn't forgotten their story, and the headlines kept coming. Some articles praised their efforts, calling them a modern-day power couple using privilege for good. Others were less kind, accusing them of using charity as a PR stunt or implying that their relationship was somehow less legitimate because of their backgrounds. One particularly scathing tabloid piece stood out. Under a flashy headline, the writer speculated whether their partnership was genuine or merely a calculated move to boost each other's images. The article painted her as someone clinging to relevance by associating with a regular guy, while portraying him as someone riding her coattails. Reading it left both of them angry and hurt, but also more determined than ever to prove the critics wrong. You know none of that is true, right? She said one evening, tossing the magazine onto the coffee table. Her voice trembled slightly, betraying the frustration she tried to hide. We're doing this because we care, not because we want attention. I know, he replied, pulling her close. And honestly, let them say whatever they want. We know the truth. That's all that matters. Their resolve only strengthened after that. Instead of letting negativity drag them down, they used it as fuel to push harder. They doubled their efforts, expanding the program to include more students and adding components like internships and job placement assistance. Word spread quickly, and soon local businesses started offering support. Even some of the skeptics softened when they saw the tangible impact the initiative was having on the community. Still, there were moments when the pressure threatened to overwhelm them. Balancing their personal lives with the demands of the program wasn't easy. Late nights turned into early mornings, and weekends disappeared into a blur of meetings and planning sessions. Stress crept in, testing their patience and communication. There were arguments, small ones at first, then bigger ones as exhaustion set in. One night after a particularly grueling day, they found themselves snapping at each other over something trivial, like whose turn it was to answer emails. I can't keep doing this, she burst out finally, throwing her hands up in frustration. It feels like we're drowning. He sighed, running a hand through his hair. I get it, I feel it too. But we can't give up now, not when we've come so far. They sat in silence for a while, the weight of their responsibilities pressing down on them. Then, slowly, she reached for his hand. You're right, she said softly. We'll figure it out. Together. That conversation marked a turning point. They realized they needed to take better care of themselves and each other if they wanted to sustain the momentum. So they made changes. They carved out time for date nights, even if it meant sneaking away for an hour between meetings. They started delegating tasks, trusting others to handle parts of the program so they didn't burn out. Most importantly, they reminded themselves why they started this journey in the first place. Not for recognition, but for the chance to make a real difference. As the months passed, their bond grew stronger. The challenges they faced together forged a deeper connection, one built on trust, sacrifice, and unwavering support. They celebrated milestones, not just for the program, but for their relationship. Their first anniversary fell on the same day as the program's one-year mark, and they commemorated both with a small gathering of friends, family, and students. Surrounded by laughter and gratitude, they reflected on how far they'd come. One student's story stood out during that celebration. A young woman named Maria, who had grown up in a low-income neighborhood, shared how the program changed her life. Before joining, she'd been unsure about her future, struggling to see a path forward, but thanks to the mentorship and resources provided, she landed an internship at a major engineering firm and was now pursuing a degree in mechanical engineering. As she spoke, tears streaming down her face, she thanked them for believing in her when no one else did. Her words resonated deeply with both of them. In that moment, they understood the true measure of their success. It wasn't about headlines or accolades, it was about the lives they touched, the barriers they helped break down, and the hope they inspired in others. By the end of the year, the program had transformed not only the students' futures but also their own. She decided to step back from her company, handing over leadership to trusted colleagues so she could focus on philanthropy full-time. It was a bold move, one that shocked many in her industry, but she felt it was the right decision. For the first time in years, she felt aligned with her purpose, free from the relentless pursuit of profit. He, meanwhile, continued to pursue his dream of becoming an engineer. With her encouragement, he applied for advanced certifications and took on challenging projects that pushed him out of his comfort zone. Though the road ahead was still uncertain, he approached it with confidence, knowing he had someone cheering him on every step of the way. Together, they proved that love isn't diminished by adversity, it's strengthened by it. Through every obstacle, they chose to stand side by side, refusing to let fear or doubt dictate their choices. Their story became a testament to the power of resilience, compassion, and the belief that two people, no matter how different, can build something extraordinary when they commit to each other and to the greater good. Years had passed since that fateful evening on the highway, and life for the two of them was almost unrecognizable from where they'd started. The scholarship program had grown beyond their wildest dreams, expanding to multiple cities and impacting hundreds of students. What began as a small seed of an idea, born out of shared values and mutual respect, had blossomed into a movement. It wasn't just about giving kids access to education anymore. It was about breaking cycles, creating opportunities, and inspiring hope in communities that needed it most. On a crisp autumn morning, they stood side by side at the groundbreaking ceremony for a new STEM Innovation Center. This facility, funded largely through donations and partnerships sparked by their efforts, would serve as a hub for young innovators to learn, experiment, and dream big. As local leaders, educators, and students gathered around, cameras flashing and applause ringing out, they exchanged a glance, a silent acknowledgement of how far they'd come together. For her, this moment felt like the culmination of everything she'd been searching for throughout her life. Growing up, she'd always known she wanted to make a difference, but somewhere along the way, she lost sight of what truly mattered. Success became defined by titles, wealth, and external validation. But standing there now, surrounded by eager faces and heartfelt gratitude, she realized none of those things compared to the fulfillment of seeing lives transformed. Her decision to step back from her company hadn't been easy. At first, critics questioned her sanity, calling it reckless or naive. Yet looking back, she knew it was one of the best choices she ever made. Without the constant pressure of running a multi-million-dollar business, she found time to reconnect with herself, rediscovering passions she thought she'd left behind. She threw herself into mentoring young entrepreneurs, sharing lessons learned from both her successes and failures. And through it all, he remained her rock, offering unwavering support and reminding her of her worth when self-doubt crept in. For him, the journey had been nothing short of transformative. He still remembered the days when doubt clouded his mind, when people whispered behind his back, questioning whether someone like him could ever belong in her world. Those voices hadn't disappeared entirely, but over time they faded into the background, drowned out by the cheers of students whose lives he touched. Watching them succeed filled him with pride, not because he took credit for their achievements, but because he played a small part in helping them believe in themselves. His own career flourished alongside the program's growth. After earning advanced certifications and completing challenging projects, he landed a position at a prestigious engineering firm. His colleagues admired not only his technical skills, but also his ability to connect with people, to listen and understand, before jumping to solutions. It was a trait he honed during countless conversations with her, learning to value empathy as much as expertise. Together, they balanced each other perfectly. She brought vision and ambition while he anchored them with patience and humility. Their relationship evolved too, growing deeper and more resilient with every challenge they faced. There were still moments of tension, of course, times when the weight of responsibility threatened to pull them apart. But instead of letting disagreements linger, they tackled issues head-on, always prioritizing open communication. They learned to celebrate victories together, no matter how small, and to lean on each other during setbacks. Their love wasn't built on perfection. It thrived because of their willingness to grow together. One of the most profound changes came in the way they viewed themselves and each other. Early on, she worried about being seen as too successful or intimidating, fearing that others might judge him for being with her. Similarly, he struggled with insecurities, wondering if he measured up to the expectations of her world. Over time, though, they realized those fears stemmed from societal pressures, not from within. Love, they discovered, wasn't about fitting into predefined roles or meeting arbitrary standards. It was about embracing who you were and who your partner was, with authenticity and grace. That lesson extended beyond their personal lives. Through their work with the scholarship program, they inspired countless others to rethink their assumptions about class, privilege, and opportunity. Students from diverse backgrounds saw firsthand that collaboration could bridge divides, proving that innovation thrives when people bring different perspectives to the table. Educators praised their approach, noting how it challenged traditional notions of success and encouraged inclusivity. Even skeptics softened, unable to deny the tangible impact of their efforts. At the heart of it all was their partnership, a testament to the power of choosing love over fear. On nights when the world felt overwhelming, they reminded each other why they started this journey in the first place. "We're not doing this for us," she often said. "We're doing it for them, for everyone who deserves a chance to shine." And shine they did. At the Innovation Center's grand opening, months after the groundbreaking ceremony, they watched proudly as students showcased their projects, from sustainable energy solutions to apps designed to improve mental health. The creativity and ingenuity on display were breathtaking. One student, a shy teenager with a passion for robotics, approached them nervously, clutching a prototype in his hands. "Thank you," he stammered, his voice trembling with emotion. "Without this program, I don't think I'd have ever believed I could do something like this." Tears welled up in her eyes as she hugged him tightly, whispering words of encouragement. Beside her, he nodded, his expression full of pride. In that moment, they understood the ripple effect of their actions. By investing in these young minds, they weren't just changing individual lives, they were shaping the future. As the event wound down and the crowd dispersed, they found themselves alone on the steps of the newly opened center. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the courtyard. For a while, neither spoke, content to simply savor the quiet triumph of the day. Finally, she broke the silence. "Do you remember that night on the highway?" she asked, her tone wistful yet warm. "When we first met?" He chuckled softly, nodding. "How could I forget? You were pacing back and forth like a lioness, ready to pounce on that flat tire." She laughed, nudging him playfully. "I wasn't that bad." "You kinda were," he teased, grinning. Then, his expression softened. "But seriously, look at us now. Who would have thought a flat tire could lead to all this?" She leaned into him, resting her head on his shoulder. "Not me, but I'm glad it did." They stood there for a while longer, hand in hand, reflecting on the twists and turns that had brought them here. Life hadn't been easy, not for either of them, but they wouldn't trade a single moment of it. Every struggle, every triumph, every sleepless night had led them to this point, standing together, stronger than ever, with hearts full of purpose and gratitude. In the end, their story wasn't just about overcoming adversity or bridging differences. It was about finding joy in the unexpected, courage in the face of doubt, and meaning in the act of giving back. Most importantly, it was about love, the kind that inspires, uplifts, and transforms. And as they walked away from the center that evening, bathed in the golden glow of twilight, they knew their journey was far from over.